Well, the future is not very pleasant, let me just say. I mean, at a more global level, you see the way in which the quest for resources means that private companies and some governments, for example, China, or even companies from China and India, are having to either buy or lease or occupy lands in major parts of the world, and not just Africa. It's also now happening in New Zealand and Australia because they have to find resources for their own domestic markets and internationally, whether it's milk or vegetables or oil or energy, which is one side of the scale. But at a less organized level, which is more informal, and I take here an example of the boundary between Sudan, South Sudan, Kenya, and Ethiopia, where you've had nomadic groups for centuries traversing that area. Now, as water sources dry up, as the animals die, they're beginning to raid each other's backyards, okay, in search of precisely whether it's food or animals or grazing areas. They don't mind the borders. The borders don't affect them at all. If it has rained somewhere, there's a pool of water, they'll cross with their animals and clash with the local communities, because the local communities also want to protect their resources. Now, it is in those areas where you think, in the future, more protection and assistance and recognition of the problem is important. You find it in relation to the Amazon Indians throughout Latin America as well, indigenous groups who occupy land which may be rich in some timber, natural resources like minerals, and state and international companies want to lay their resources. But this is also the blood and livelihood of those communities, and they have to fight to keep their resources. So obviously this may result in displacement. I think in Brazil there's a huge project to actually displace populations in order to give way to state development. And this is something that comes up all the time. As we speak, I think in Ethiopia as well, individuals are being displaced. In Zambia, where I come from originally, small communities have been displaced because of uranium mining. And licenses have been given to some companies to mine uranium, which means for safety reasons, but also for reasons that you have to mine uranium in those areas, then the populations have to be displaced. And this is a constant battle. So I have to say to states where you have to carry out an environmental risk assessment before you begin to displace individuals. Are there feasible alternatives that you can look into? And you also have to prepare ground in terms of where you locate these individuals and demonstrate that it's actually overwhelmingly in the public interest to displace them, but also have infrastructure where they are going in terms of houses, roads, hospitals, and schools, because they must be the primary beneficiaries of those kinds of projects. But by and large, governments simply tend to either remove them, or private companies remove them, or give them token sums of money, which may not actually sustain them over a period of time.